Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello, and homeschoolers. Welcome to take 2 of this intro where Ariel is very hungry. She had a tummy rumble in the last one.
It was so loud, you guys.
That I'm going to go back and listen to see if I can actually hear it on the first.
It was a long, low tummy rumble.
The woman's hungry. Feed the woman. Feed me, Seymour. If you have a chance, feed us a little bit of coffee and go on over to our Gumroad page. Buy us a coffee if you are enjoying all this stuff. Yeah,
there's a nice support us link on there. If you need an around the world guide or something else to help you out, then we've got those. But if not, you just want to say thanks to your favorite podcast. We appreciate it. Say
thanks and send Ariel to Wingstop. We can get some of the good wings. Anyway, that being said, we're going to wrap up our 3D printing. We talked about kind of, what is 3D printing? Last week we had a really nice in-depth kind of walk you through how to get into it, how to introduce yourself to it, a lot of the little gotchas and maybe some considerations when you're setting up a 3D printer and which type of printer you may want. So if you want to hear about that, go ahead and listen to those previous 2 episodes. Today we're going to talk about modeling, and this may be a little bit more technical than most people, but if you're thinking about doing the printer and we're thinking about using it in our homeschool, the next logical step from using the 3D printer is not maybe you using a modeling software to design something, but having our children become 3D modelers and do that. So today we're going to be talking about that. So Ariel, let's kick it off. 3D modeling. Sounds scary. What are we doing?
So really, it's the process of creating a digital representation of an object in 3 dimensions, right? That's 3D printing. Yep. So or 3D modeling, once you make the model, then you would send it to a slicer software. We talked about Bamboo Studio last week, which is free, but there are others. There's Prusa and Orca, and there's a bunch of things. And basically what you're going to be doing with that is taking your 3D model and having this program slice it into pieces and do the infill, which we talked about, which is that geometric pattern that goes inside
to help. The internal honeycombing. Yeah. The
internal honeycombing, exactly, to give it that strength without the weight and the cost of all that filament. And then once you slice, then you print. So really, it just opens up your opportunities. For example, I think we talked about a little bit on the first episode, but we use those 16-ounce deli cups. We use them for all of our meal prep and stuff. And there's like a ton of lids. And I needed something to hold all these lids. So I went in and I couldn't find anything.
Nope.
So that someone had already made, because most of what I print is wonderful files people have already made for free. But in this case, I needed something that I could, hold all these lids with, and I didn't have anything. So I took out my ruler, I measured the base of the lids, I went into a free program called Tinkercad, and I made a little lid holder for it, and then I printed it that night. So there's always going to be, when you start 3D printing, there's always going to be some element of, I can't find exactly what I need. It doesn't have exactly the dimensions that I'm looking for.
And sometimes it might be scaled differently or might be for a different solution, and you go, wow, that looks really good. If it could just kind of look like this, then I could use it, right?
Right. And I think just, we've been talking about the Bamboo environment because that's what we're familiar with. So I think it is probably valuable to tell you that there's a little bit of things that you can do in the software itself without having to go and do full modeling. So if you're kind of this mind that you think you might want to model or your kids might want to model, initially in the Bamboo software, you can do a couple of things. You can scale it. Yep. You can, by a percentage, grow or shrink it. You can also change the scale in any one dimension. I had some boxes I wanted to print to organize our junk drawer, and they were 200 millimeters. My printer can only print 180, so I didn't want to scale the entire model because I liked the rest of it. It's just too long. So I went in there and I selected just that one axis, and I changed just that number to 180, and then it was able to print on my printer.
Okay, so then it just compressed in that axis.
Right.
Okay, cool.
So you can scale it, you can duplicate, you can make more copies of it, you can cut it. So, for example, we talked about in the very first episode kit cards. And I've printed all kinds of kit cards, which is just a flat card with all the different little pieces that are attached to
It's like a model.
to build a model. And I printed you this model of this dune thopter, and all of it printed great, but one little thopter window did not adhere to the plate because I must not have cleaned it well, which I do wipe it down with an alcohol wipe every few prints, or you can wash it with dish soap like Dawn and warm water and then dry it. So I must have had a little bit of residue on my plate, didn't print. So I went in, I reloaded it into Bamboo, and then I was able to cut the model by deleting all the other objects except the little window, and I reprinted just the little window so that I didn't have to do the whole print. So you can do that in Bamboo. You can also go ahead and add text to your models. So if you want to add, some sort of customizable text, you can do that there. So there's a couple things that you can do without having to get into any modeling. If you find something that's close, but just needs a little stretch here or there, you want to put a name on it or make a couple more of it or take something away. You can even cut the model. So like if it was too tall and you just wanted to, cut it down, you could slice it partway through.
Okay.
So there's some simple stuff you can do.
Kind of
there.
intermediate 3D printing, just using some basic dimensional controls.
Exactly.
What are some of the main tools that you would want to use then? Like other than the Bamboo Labs, where would somebody go first?
So there's two main programs that I would recommend if it's for your kids or even for you. I mean, this is where I started. Tinkercad. It's a kid modeling program based from Autodesk, which Autodesk does, AutoCAD and all kinds of
all the big ones. Yeah.
all the big ones. And then for the more advanced modeling, there's Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is free as long as you don't earn more than $1,000 a year. You can use it free as your personal license, and it gives you access to almost all the capabilities of the full 360. There's some stuff that's missing. Okay. But for most of the work that you want to do, you could use either of those two programs.
Okay.
So Tinkercad is great. These are both.
And it's Tinkercad's web-based though, right?
Tinkercad's web-based, and Fusion 360 is a program on your computer,
Okay,
but it has cloud storage.
So if you're thinking like, oh, I have a Chromebook for my student and that's their computer, they can use Tinkercad to be that
great.
one. Okay, cool.
And you can do a lot of really complex things in Tinkercad. Okay. It's a really simple interface. You just drag and drop shapes like, oh, here's a square, here's a cone, whatever. You can drag and drop, and then you can put several shapes near one another or intersecting with one another, select them all and then just say join these together, and then they become one model. Okay. So it's really easy to use. There's tons of pre-made shapes that are in a library, which is why I think it's a great starting point.
Okay, yeah, because creating those shapes can be a little tricky if you're just doing that from a blank canvas.
Exactly.
And what I like about that too is it's web-based. You can maybe even use an iPad or any other type of mobile device if you have that as your student's platform that they use.
I haven't used it on an iPad, but it would probably
I mean, if it's web-based, it should be able to work.
Yeah, it's
just how does it handle your finger movements and stuff?
Right.
Yeah. Or if you have a mouse, you can actually have a mouse for your iPad or your Android as well.
I found it really easy to use, especially if you want to even if you're not going to do any 3D printing. Even if you're like, well, 3D printing is not for us. Maybe you're a mobile family. You're not 3D printing things because you travel in your homeschool. Yeah. You could even have your student learn 3D modeling. You don't have to actually make the item. The process of modeling is actually a great learning exercise. So I like the library of shapes. Everything is saved on the cloud, so it can be collaborative. You could have multiple kids work together. Okay. It's really easy to save your designs. So it's just a free account, and then there's some introductory videos and tutorial stuff on Tinkercad. Okay. I found a lot of great stuff on YouTube that you can just watch. Some people have full YouTube courses on learning Tinkercad day one.
You were doing that for Fusion 360, right?
Yeah, for the other program.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's tons of great stuff. But you can just start by designing really basic shapes, and then you put those shapes together, create a model, and then save it. And you can import it into Bamboo Studio, slice it, and make it. I mean, it's really simple.
And that could really take if I'm thinking, as a homeschooler, as a parent, as an educator, using those Tinkercad programs as kind of like an adjacent to your geometry lessons, and then having your student print, some type of prism, or that is on certain dimensions,
Right.
or some type of shape, or give me a scalene triangle that has volume, like a prism, right?
Right.
And they have to go and make that, and that
Sure.
would be a super cool task for them, not only to learn about this concept, but then put that concept into practice.
Yeah, and there's a lot of math that goes into using it. Like, for example, if you wanted to make a bin, you would have to make a box, and then you have to make another box that is
A negative of
that is X amount above and X amount in, however much, whatever the shell you want the thickness of that box to be. And then you would go ahead and the second box, you would make it a negative, a cut. And you join the two pieces together, and then all of a sudden you have a hole carved out of the original box. But you've got to do a little bit of math to figure that out. It's easy math, but I think it's great to teach our kids to think spatially.
And we mentioned, I think, in the first episode, but I'll mention it again here. When you're starting to get into this modeling and you're starting to think about dimensionality and maybe the application of whatever you're making, having a set of calipers that can measure the inside distance and the external distance of what you're trying to fit the object into, not just sitting there with a ruler and everything. Having a set of digital calipers is super, super helpful for, the person to begin to actually generate what they actually need, and down to a nice resolution. I remember, it's so funny. For like 2 months, I watched Ariel with this way too big ruler. It's sitting there. It's like one of these metal ones that has cork backing, and she's like bending it, and she's like, "Oh God, it's about this and about this." And I was sitting there watching you do that, and you kept saying, "Oh, I just wish I would have the calipers. I wish I had the calipers." And me, as being the new proactive husband, that the wife is very impressed by, not the lazy procrastinating husband. We're talking about the proactive husband. I had already purchased her calipers for her birthday, but unfortunately her birthday's in a couple months, and so I went and I gave you your calipers.
You're like, if I have to hear one more time, I need a set of calipers.
You go, oh, I remember I came down. It was like, I don't know, it was like 10 o'clock at night. And you're like, gosh, I wish I had calipers. And I go, I just walked upstairs into my closet, got them, came back, happy birthday.
Yeah, they're really helpful.
And I'll put a link to the ones I got her. They're not expensive.
No.
They're digital. They're really nice and smooth. Do you like them?
Yeah, I think they're great.
Okay.
And they come with a couple extra batteries, really easy to use, a little carrying case. Although it's funny, one of the little snaps on the case is not tight anymore. I'm like, I guess I got to print a new case for these, which is just another fun thing to do. But yeah, no, they're great. I think they're a good purchase.
So the calipers can help accentuate the modeling. So it brings the where you're going to implement it into the program. The program goes to design, you go to the printer, and then you get to see that you made the right thing. And it was cool. You used the calipers the first time, and it was like, wow, it actually worked.
Yeah.
You built in the tool, you printed from the tool, and it was exactly what you measured in the real world.
It was great.
To see the synergy of all three of those together is a really cool experience, and I think that would help really accentuate any type of learning experience for a young learner.
Yeah, I think it was great. So Tinkercad is, a child as young as 5 can use it. My little one and I have been modeling a bit together. My older daughter, my 9-year-old, really wants to learn Tinkercad.
She's desperate
bad.
to want
She's
to.
so excited. Oh, in fact, that's something we should put on her computer upstairs. Yeah. We put an old iMac upstairs for her.
We locked it down. She only has access to like 7 websites and like 2 applications.
It's going to be for homeschool. We had this old iMac, and she's away at Grandma and Grandpa's this weekend, and so we put it upstairs for her. But we should put that on there because that would be great. It teaches so much, even if you don't intend to print, or if you have a makerspace that you're going to take files to. You can go ahead and make them in Tinkercad, export them, and save them on a jump drive. Take them down to your makerspace or your library if they have a makerspace, and go ahead and print from it. Yeah. It's really terrific.
Yeah, like we're I won't tease it too much, but we have some things we're going to do in the summer, and I'm starting to think about ideas and
like what can we bring?
Like because I'm doing I want to do kind of a sciencey thing, and I want to start with some atomics. I want to start talking about atoms and molecules and stuff. And I'm sitting inside my head, I'm like, oh, I can print these things, but I'm like, I don't have to print them. I could task my student to go and make an oxygen atom, and make a hydrogen atom.
And that it would be such an easy thing to do in in a Tinkercad, you
and then
could
print
absolutely
those,
do that.
and I want you to build it, and then we're going to drill the holes, and we're going to make it so that we can actually make a water molecule.
Well, we don't even need to drill. I mean, we can put the hole.
we
We
can
can
put
put
the
the
hole
hole
in
in
there.
there,
Yeah.
and then they press fit together. I mean, there's so much that you can do.
Yeah.
So the next program is called Fusion 360, which is also from Autodesk. We talked about it being free up to $1,000. If you're making more than $1,000
Good
on
for
your
you.
3D printing,
Good for
woohoo, good for you.
Homeschool micro business.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. You know, we have like a kids' day at our farmers market.
We do.
Your child could print things and sell them there. So there's things like that you could definitely do to help offset the cost of printing. So the thing about Fusion 360, it would be better for older students, kind of maybe 12 and up kind of thing.
And you would say after using 360 and Tinkercad, 360 is a lot more difficult to use.
Tons more difficult.
Different. Okay.
But it does a lot more.
More, yeah.
So there's a couple of big things about Fusion 360 that you don't get with Tinker. Tinker is very easy to use, but Fusion 360 allows you to do parametric design, which means that you can set dimensions and constraints. So Tinker does allow you to size a model to the size you want, but it doesn't allow you to constrain the model. Mm-hmm. And by constrain, what I mean is, for example, I'm designing custom bins for the drawers in our office. They can only be this tall. That is a hard limit, right? Because otherwise it won't fit in the drawer. I can put that constraint. Now I can do all kinds of other manipulations, and it's not going to let me alter that without going in and changing that constraint. Whereas with Tinker, you know, I could easily go in, set the height of that block to be, you know, the height I need it to be, and then do a bunch of other manipulation and have accidentally pulled that height or something, and all of a sudden it won't work.
Gotcha.
So that's a big piece, is being able to constrain it the proper way. The other thing is that it has a timeline feature. So for example, let's say you're making a bin for pens or something. Okay, so you're going to make, and what if you want it to be a stacking bin? Mm-hmm. So you want several, two bins stacked together on top of each other. I did this in our junk drawer because the bin on the bottom has Sharpies in it, and the bin on the top has regular pens. And we all know I don't want the Sharpies to be the first thing that the 5-year-old sees to try to grab. So I wanted to do these two bins. Okay, so the bin is a box, so you model the box. Then you need to model the cutout in the box. And in Fusion 360, it's a shell, but basically you're going to model the cut so that you make it a bin. Then on the top of the box, you have to make an angle cut so that it can fit the next box above it. Mm-hmm. When you're doing the box above,
like a beveled edge,
right? You need to do a 45-degree angle. So on the box below, I have to do the same thing. I have to do those cuts. So those are
so they
all,
can stack on top of each other,
right? So those are all different operations that I have to do. Well, what if I realize as I'm going through this, I make the box, I make the cut in it, then I make the bevel on the bottom, make the bevel on the top, and then I realize, oh shoot, I didn't realize I didn't make that shell thick enough. I only made it 1 millimeter. I need to be 2 millimeters. If you're in Tinkercad, you have to delete it and you have to start from scratch. If you're in Fusion 360, it has a little timeline at the bottom of every operation you took. All I have to do is go back to the operation where I cut it, and instead of it being 1 millimeter, I change it to 2 millimeters, and it changes the rest of the model because I changed just the one operation that I did that I didn't like.
That's super cool.
Or like I found out when I did my first round that my angle was too steep. I would have had to go and do the whole model again because the angle that I cut on the bottom was too steep and there was too much of an overhang and I wasn't printing.
So the tool has a lot of power features for the oops, I made a mistake type of thing.
Exactly.
Which is going to happen when you're designing something of any complexity, like beyond just making some simple shapes and whatnot. When you're starting to make something that's very specific, you can make an oops mistake. And so having that ability there. So you would recommend introduce children to the Tinkercad, get some experience. When all of a sudden they start complaining that I need to be able to do these things, then they can say, okay, here's Fusion 360.
Right. And it's going to have lots of similar aspects.
A lot of the same terminologies and everything. Okay.
It's just going to be, it's a lot more complex because Fusion 360 is used by professionals who do CAD modeling in their jobs and they make parts and stuff. So it has a lot more features, but in the basics, you can do some of that stuff. The other thing you can do is you can do assemblies. So I want to make a box with a lid. And so, I've got the box and the lid and here's the hinge and you can make all the pieces and then you can actually simulate in Fusion 360 that the box will open and close and it will fit correctly, and maybe make a latch on it.
Does Tinkercad have simulation or testing?
No, it doesn't. So Tinkercad doesn't. It just allows you to do, that specific object that you want to make. And it's a great place to start. I would absolutely start with Tinker. But if you want to do something more complex, Fusion 360 is going to be the way that you're going to have to go.
And you recommend that for older students then?
Yeah, older students or adults who want to model. So I'm in the middle of doing, and we'll put a link in the show note. I'm in the middle of doing a Fusion 360 course. Learn Fusion 360 in 30 days on YouTube, and it's been great. And so I'm learning a ton through that process. So far, I modeled a Lego brick and a soda bottle, and I was using with another guy. I was we're modeling a box with a latch and stuff, and I've done a screw top. So I've learned how to put threads in. That's another thing you can do. I just printed a headphone holder for our daughter's desk, and it actually has, it's like a little vise kind of thing. It's got a little screw, a nut, and it just it clamps right onto there and holds her headphones. So you can print threads. That's cool. So that's something I'm learning too. So you can definitely find great courses on YouTube. It's simple. You just download it, you select the free license, and go ahead and get started. But do not try to just jump into it. I'm pretty tech savvy, and I was definitely lost at the beginning. Definitely do a course.
Absolutely. Okay, so Tinkercad, Fusion 360. Let's talk a little bit about integrating that 3D modeling, obviously to what we're trying to do, which is homeschool. What would be a routine idea that you could do here?
Yeah, I think starting with Tinkercad would be fantastic, and start with some sort of a course. I would find one on YouTube that your child can follow along with. And that would be a great way for them to learn. Just like our daughter has been started with Procreate. Yep,
she's been doing, our oldest, on her iPad, we bought Procreate for her for Christmas. It was like $13, and she has the Apple Pen. And what she's been doing is, it's a little difficult because you want to do these YouTube follow along videos, right, where an artist will.
We're doing Art with Flow, right? That's the one it's called.
Art with Flow, yeah, that's been the one that we've done a few.
Those are really good.
They're really good. I'll put a link to that down below, and I'll put a link to all the other stuff as well. But yeah, watching the video, being able to pause it, coming over to my iPad and doing it, super powerful. So if you can imagine, you have a screen where you have the YouTube video, and they're just walking along with the videos. It's so helpful.
So we've been doing it on our TV, right? So we put it on the TV, the video.
So it's nice and big, so she can watch it. Or we have the double monitor set up here in the office that's really large, so she can have it on one screen and then be working on her iPad in front of her. But if you have a double monitor setup, you can imagine having the YouTube video on one monitor blown up, and they can pause that and rewind and be working in Tinkercad on the other window. I would say that's a really good experience. Or if you have one massive monitor, you can dock the windows on two sides. But working on just the laptop is going to be difficult to be able to watch the video, pause and play, and then use your screen. So they may need to have like a phone or another tablet where the video is playing, then they can work on the tool. So having kind of that split setup might be a helpful thing. I've noticed that when
you definitely will need it,
especially because these are situations where it's almost 99% certain that the parents don't have any experience in this. So we're going to have to be farming out the tutorials and the teaching to, most likely a YouTube video that is walking people through how to do this, and having a dual monitor setup or dual screen setup, or having a monitor that's so large that you can dock two windows where you can work side by side. Yeah. And I'm not lying, on the Procreate thing, when I was doing it with my daughter, I have my iPad, I have my pen, she has her iPad and her pen, and we're doing it literally together. And we're having to pause every 15, 20 seconds. And we're like, okay, where's that selection? Oh, it's under that brush, that one. Okay, here, let's find it together. Yeah. And we're having to pause every 15, 20 seconds to follow along, because we got to go find where that is in the tool and stuff.
Well, right. And I think the more that you do, and I found this with Fusion 360, the more videos that I watch and then I understand where those menus are, then I can listen, and he says, oh, go to the shape menu and select this.
Yeah, by the time we got to our...
where's the shape menu?
Yeah, by the time we got to our third or fourth video where we worked through it, we were now watching like for 2-minute chunks, and then we would pause and would say, okay. And if she says, oh, Daddy, where's that brush? I go, oh, it's right over here. And I can help you then, and work side by side. So as you do more tutorials, you will watch more videos. But at those initial tutorials, it's super helpful to pause, play really quick.
Yeah, I think it would be great to start with a tutorial video set like that, and then start with some easy design challenges. You can find so much information online about easy Tinkercad projects to get them started with, so you can make them assignments. And I think that would be a fun thing for our daughter to do, is to have her watch and do a few things, and then make an assignment for her to make an object or whatever, and then we can print it.
Yeah.
There's also great ways you can model simple machines and things.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great way to enhance your homeschool. I forgot about
making screws that go into plastic pieces is a great test.
Right. And we saw, I actually, there's a bunch of people that have modeled like Archimedes screws and simple Da Vinci inventions and stuff like that. So there's actually a lot that you can find if you're looking into. But anytime you're teaching simple mechanics, so I think that would be a great way to start.
So I've personally seen this now with at least two programs. The first one being the Procreate tool. My daughter has also been interested in video editing. Yeah. Because she sometimes sees me doing it for the YouTube videos that we put out.
Well, you're also volunteering in a movie making class.
And I'm in
school.
a movie making class that I volunteer, and she does her violin for the first hour of that class. And when she gets out of violin, she comes into the film class, and in that film class, we have these are older students, like 6th grade to 12th graders. And I'm in there because I've had some experience with this, and I want to volunteer. And it's part of my desire to have my face seen in the school. And maybe they want to hire that dad to help teach some classes once he has his teaching certificate. Anyway, so she'll come into the class, and she was seeing these kids using this tool called Video as an editing tool. It's an online tool, so very similar to the idea of the Tinkercad, where it's web-based, so you can do it anywhere you have a web tool, and it's agnostic to what type of computer platform you have on. If it's a Mac or a Chromebook or a PC, you can use it anywhere. It's cloud-based, and so she was like really interested in that. She goes, "Daddy, can I try that?" And I have allowed her now multiple times to use this tool to create little videos about who am I, and she gets to put in volleyball and basketball and crafts and spas, and she gets to make it and put her music, and her sister will sit there right next to her helping her, and then she's got to type things. The act of struggling through those is really interesting to watch. So I've seen this aspect a couple times now with other tools, and it's been very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's true. So this is it's a great subject, whether you're going to actually print or not. 3D modeling is a great skill to have. It teaches a lot of, I think it teaches some perseverance, right? It's a difficult thing to do. But
anytime with a tool like these, the act of struggling is the act of learning.
Yeah.
And so, but the funny thing is, though, they're so motivated to do the thing that you'll see a child who may get frustrated at doing other things just persevere like crazy through it. Like, it's difficult. They may need a little bit of help here and there, but they will do a deep dive for an hour and a half on this thing because they're so invested in the creativity and the amount of learning that they're doing in this, like just, learning the tool, discovery, finding things, playing and exploring. Yeah. And it's so unique to them and so much fun that they're willing to persevere beyond anything that I've ever seen my daughter persevere on. When she gets into these situations where she's really motivated on this, 3D modeling is going to be something she'll sit down for 2 hours and just grind on and learn so much and explore and play and be creative. I saw that on the Video. I've seen that on the Procreate. It's really incredible. Like, I didn't even know it was capable. Remember, she took a picture of her sister, and then she was drawing mustaches on her and everything in Procreate. And I'm like, I didn't even know you could do that. But so, yeah, definitely exploring the tool, I think, is super powerful.
Yeah. So hopefully this was a good intro series for 3D printing. Maybe it piqued your interest. If you get one, if you start printing, or if you start modeling, share with us. We'd love to see the stuff that you're putting together for your homeschools or that your kids are doing. And there's lots of great links down below, so definitely check it out.
3D printing is peak STEM, I think.
Yeah, it is. If you've got STEM-minded kiddos, I think you're going to have a lot more fun. This has... it reaches so much further than I ever anticipated it would.
But even like delves into a little bit of the art and the creativity aspect. So it's really doing that STEAM thing where it's science, technology, art, and
that's absolutely true.
I think it brings that artistic element in there, allows you to kind of fold in STEM with creativity. And I think it has a wide range of touches. And, we've talked about geography with maps and geology with, maybe you could print the Grand Canyon or something. There's just so much creativity. Cultural, you can print, things from different cultures. You can print monuments and whatnot. So there's so much you can touch here.
Yeah.
And it allows you so much creativity. I think it's one of the coolest things we've got in the house right now.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
Happy homeschooling!